As Japan shook, now we're seeing things start to go across towards America. And the big question is America next? And we're going to be looking into all that right now today and getting stuff from you on the ground. There's an 800-mile coastline effect of this 7.5 magnitude warning has been issued. But first, let's take a look at what's been happening lately.
Shaky start to the week in the East Bay. Another earthquake storm centered in San Ramon. More than a dozen small quakes hit the area in the last 24 hours. A lot of people asking the question, is this a sign of a bigger one to come?
Surveillance cameras capturing a 3.6 magnitude earthquake shaking things up and capturing his reaction as he considered running.
Before we get into everything, what are you seeing in your state, your location? Drop it in the chat right now to help everyone stay aware, because over these next couple of days and weeks, we're going to need to be looking at each other in the comment section. Drop that right now, because Japan just warned of a possible megaquake after this earthquake, raising this potential 98-foot tsunami, CBS News reports. And not just that, we go into more. We just saw today off the coast of Oregon, nobody's talking about it yet, but a 4.1 has struck off the coast of Oregon as we are speaking to you right now. So we're going to look deeper into all the other situations here that's occurring, because we see Alaska has not stopped. Alaska has multiple earthquakes right now happening, 3.8, 2.7, 3.4. But there's a person who is watching and monitoring that area, and they have something that we need to really pay attention to and listen to. So take a listen to this, and then I'm going to look at one of the comments here, and I need more answers from you.
So Hubbard Glacier is where a 7.0 earthquake struck just 24 hours ago. And since then, there have been about 200 earthquakes in that same area. And this is significant because a glacier, a massive piece of ice that continues to be shaken, just imagine the possibilities around that, the tsunamis that could happen as a direct result. I'll also add into that Saturn went direct Thanksgiving night. Saturn is in Pisces, a water sign, and Neptune, which is also associated with water, Neptune goes direct on Wednesday, December 10th in Pisces, a water sign. Water, water, water. Keep an eye out this week for what happens, what big things happen around water.
All right, we're going to have eyes on that, but I have to tell you something that is really important. And first of all, I need to find out how widespread this is. So I need to read this because this is something that's going unreported. And there's a comment that came in. It says to my channel, hey, listen, it's December 9th in Alabama. I just heard another loud boom to where the house shook, just like a little loud thunder. This has been going on for a week now, sometimes not as loud as others. Let's check to see something. Yeah, there's no reports of an earthquake in Alabama. So here's what I need right now. I need to know how widespread this is. So drop your location and say boom or shake in the chat right now, because I need to know how far this is spread, because this is something that's not really being widely reported, because there is no seismic center on this activity right now. So you're going to, in the live chat, I'm looking at all the comments right now, and I need to really see what's going on. But moving into everything else, and I'm going to check that here in just a second. So Alaska had aftershocks, and we just talked about today what's happening. This is some of the imagery of when the 5.8 hit. And moving a little bit further today, what's going to be happening? Because a lot of people are wondering, well, is America next? We're already seeing activity peak up. And like we said, that earthquake expert came in saying what he said. He said the magma shifted. And I was saying the exact same thing. So when we look at today, it's not just the situation of earthquakes and everything else. We have a geomagnetic storm today, and it's happening right now as we speak. So the activity is peaking up even more because of this. And what's the magnetic anomaly today? So I'm going to read that out to you. So incoming energy on the magnetic anomaly for 2025, 12/9 right now. We're looking at this anomaly right here, as you can see. You can see where this area is. It's off of the west coast, but a little lower portion. So we're watching that area because there's a slight spike in incoming energy right there. So that's going to be something we're looking at all along the west coast, though. We saw energy start to transfer as this situation is happening with Japan. And let's read about this because this is a big event here. And we need to read about, because I told you that the supply chain will be affected. We're talking about car parts. We're talking about chemicals, electronics, a lot of the chip manufacturers. Let's read a little bit right now if this does happen. According to the government estimates, an offshore megaquake could cause up to a 30-meter, 98-foot tsunami and could take out as many as 199,000 people, destroy up to 220,000 houses and buildings, cause estimated economic damages up to 31 trillion yen, which is 198 billion. So yes, this is not a small scale event. Now, when this originally happened, I told you Iwo Jima in September, the military had to leave because the volcano, the underwater submarine volcano, erupted. And I was speaking to somebody on the military base where they relocated from Iwo Jima to Iwakuni. And again, this is what he said. They only had a few minutes to get off ground. And I'm going to read that really quick because it's important. It says, okay, let's go to the first one, though, when he said this originally. I am on MCAS Iwakuni. My wife is active duty, and we are literally on the base. It can't get much more in Iwakuni than there. So that's right next to the area where Japan is having this earthquake right now. I said, okay, got you. Ground zero. He says they are a precautionary plan because we were talking about evacuation orders. They don't specify any particular emergency. We are to keep a go bag of clothes and documents for all family members. Plan is to be able to get off the ground inside of 30 minutes. So I contacted him today about this situation to see, okay, are you getting the alert about this? These few minutes you have to get off the ground, because I was expecting that that's the situation. So we will update on that. But moving into what's happening once again right now, as the fog was rolling in just yesterday, we talked about it, and we talked about Chernobyl situation. We now have evacuation orders that are possible as the state gets more than a foot of rain. And we're talking about on the West Coast as well, but we've seen things happening all over in multiple areas. I'm going to show you that right now. So these are the exact areas where we saw all the fog alerts rolling in just the other day. And how are you doing today if you were under those fog alerts situations that was all across America? It's like everything is just happening all at once. You know, it's like, wow. So I just want everybody to right now take a deep breath, breathe. You're alive, you're breathing. We still here. We seeing all this stuff happen, and it's like some type of movie, but we're alive, right? We're still breathing. You here, you know, and it's a great time to be alive. And it's like, wow, all this is playing out. So many places had earthquakes. Even Texas had a 2.1 today. I was looking at that. But even if we go a little bit deeper here, with the Alaska tsunami situation that potentially could happen if the glacier melts. So they found out that this was on a fault line where these earthquakes in Alaska Earthquake Center reported after the 7.0, but then the 5.8 hits. And then today we got 3.4s and more hitting. This was on a fault line where all of this is starting to happen. How do we know the magma is shifting? I told you the first pinpoint was the underwater submarine volcano the military had to evacuate from. Our second pinpoint is when we look in the middle of the Pacific, high lava fountain is destroying Kilauea, destroying USGS monitoring camera. So yes, this is really billowing up right now. We could look right here on screen, the lava flows that's coming out. So not just magma, but lava movements, even more. Yes, this is an active zone. It's always active, but now we can see more increase. And that's the incoming magnetic energy and something happening deeper beneath the earth. And a lot of people like to believe that, oh, it's all just, other agencies doing this. And that's not the case. They are not in control of everything that is happening right now. The earth has hit its cycle. This cycle is seen every 80 to 100 years. And sometimes it spans a little bit longer. And that's based on the fourth turning cycle. These cycles come in a buried societies. We've seen if you look under the ocean, there are so many societies that was buried deep beneath the water because of these giant tsunamis that came in and took over that civilization. And once again, we're in another scenario where everything is at this point is out of our hands, out of our reach. What we do as community here keeps us aware so that we can move as people and watch together, because that is the ultimate situation here as we go through this, to just know how to navigate. And that's why when I look in the chat, I make sure that you and everybody else are understanding the simple basics to the story at hand. So as this comes in, we need to look at how the effects of even the 5.8 that was just in Alaska hit. So look at the monitors and look at how all the seismic monitors start to go off when it happened. So right now, I'm looking at everybody in the chat, and some people say order out of chaos. Of course, they always get order out of chaos, and looking at chaos and trying to manage that is what ultimately they try to have their control with. But when it comes to all these shifts, we're starting to hear all these new terms and all these new terms that are coming out. People in the chat were saying yesterday, well, yeah, all these new terms is coming out. Doesn't seem like they really know what's going on here. And that's the big question here. And a lot of people say, yeah, it seemed like it's getting darker a little bit earlier. And I said, well, NASA confirmed the study that the Earth is getting darker. And the question is that because of solar radiation management when they, disperse those things in the atmosphere? That's the big question. And other people said, well, that's newbies on the West Coast. We see the sun not show up for a while, but also just like my woman was saying the exact same thing. We saw here where we're at in Arizona, and it is getting darker a little bit slightly early, which to me is a very red flag of things shifting. Now, the mosquitoes going to Iceland is another thing. We've had mosquitoes start going to Iceland, which is rare. That doesn't happen. So it tells you that the cycles here are shifting as we start to see things change around us. So all of the earthquakes and all the events that are following through right now, as we see all this activity happen, how will we really know if America is next? Well, we're starting to see that magnetic energy transfer. And as we start to see the shift, the professor was telling us, Professor Fred Zillenbach, that in 2026, we're set to see the cycles hit a bigger shift based on his 30-year research analysis. And as we continue to get new data points in, we use your intake in this community to understand a little bit deeper about the scenario at hand, because you are empowering everybody here in this community to join more and then share their own experiences. And this is actually what gives us the power and will to know a little bit more about the in-depth situations. So how many people in areas of New Madrid or whatever have touched the ground and felt the ground hotter? This is something I've been looking up. So let me know if you've had strange ground activity, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, middle of the United States, whether you're in Canada, Alaska, wherever you're at, have people, can y'all start touching the ground just to check to see if temperatures are elevating? Because that's going to be one of the key warning signs, as well as specifically told in New Madrid. But I feel like we can do this in a lot of different areas just to check to see if the activity below us is starting to shift. Here in Pennsylvania, it's still light outside at 5 p.m. This is very unusual, Renee Walker says. So a lot of people still saying that the sun thing is happening. And next year, we're set to see this eclipse where it's going to be some days of darkness. So a lot of people talk about 3 days of darkness, but this is only supposed to occur not worldwide. It's supposed to occur like over in other regions of the earth, close by the France area and over there. Now, if it was to go into a bigger area, that would be something to look at here. Scarper W says, yeah, I never heard of frozen fog. Now I heard the meteorologist in Nashville saying it. I haven't heard it either. So it's a lot of things that's starting to show up that just wasn't here before. And I got more things to pull up to show you. Now, like, let's look on here because like we said, it wasn't just Oregon that got hit. You know, we look right here on their situation. If you look, you see areas of Texas today was hit because that activity, it was about a 2.9. And what was the situation there? That's what I'm trying to figure out right now, because we could see energy transferring a lot across the middle portion of the United States as well. Now, I haven't really had much eyes on New Madrid, so that'll be up to people in the chat to let me know what's coming on. What are y'all really feeling like right now? What are y'all really feeling? Do you feel that this is the time period where inside of yourself, you can sense something that's a little bit different? And I just want to know the general feel, because societies and people throughout time who are communities have the biggest awareness. It's a study that came out that said it's not just animals that can sense earthquakes and events before they come. People can. Now, this study was done in about 1999. This study wasn't largely put out and told to the public, but this is something that was a real thing. And because you have that spiritual sense, because you have that sense of what's happening deep down, some people actually in this chat said that they were able to feel certain events, and they felt, because of the sensitivity, some people neurologically can feel this as well. They were able to predict some of the incoming earthquakes they felt. And this is not rare, but it is like maybe a 2 to 3%. Not everybody can do that, but some people really can. Others just have a sense of something changing. And then some people are just paranoid. So again, we can separate all the different three though. Somebody says, I'm south of Nashville. Somebody says, I'm home. Boom, shakalaka. Jay Florence says, you're the man. Okay, hello. I live in East Tennessee, and I've been having a lot of trouble with my Wi-Fi in my, let's see that, with my TV today, more than normal. Maybe not having to do with anything, but maybe it does. Is that widespread today, everybody? We need to confirm that before we leave or anything. Is that widespread? Is people seeing activity shift and glitches right now? And that could be due to the G3, I believe we have today. Yeah, G3 geomagnetic storm. So it says anticipated to arrive early midday. And it says dependent upon orientation, embedded magnetic field potential exists. So here's the effects. Limited or minor effects to some technological infrastructure possible, but usually mitigatable. So we're supposed to see some more auroras. There's been so many auroras. Auroras may become visible over many of the northern states and some of the lower Midwest to Oregon. General public should consider monitoring the webpage for latest information and updates. So you could be experiencing that because of this situation. I'm pretty sure that should be what's going on. Katie says, my discernment is unsettled, very aware of changes taking place around me. Okay, so again, that's a good thing that you're always aware. Why would there be an evacuation order for fog? That's a good question. So it wasn't an evacuation order for fog. It was for the atmospheric river is what they're saying. So let's go back to that. Map shows evacuation possible for one state gets more than a foot of rain. So they're not saying that it's for the fog. They're saying it's for the rain, the atmospheric river coming in over Washington, Oregon, the flood warnings that is going to take effect. You will be seeing that if you're in that location. Now, the fog situation was just alerts going out and just a unusual event where we saw different things starting to show up. And we saw it on camera footage, which we put that video out just the other day. And if you missed that, again, we'll have that in a link in the comment section. That's the only other video you should watch after this, because this is stuff that is actually affecting us as we speak right now. So if you look down and you're like, well, I've seen enough of this, and you just go click the next video then, because you ain't seen enough of that. And we got some deep information in there, an experiment, or let's say research program, a research program specifically done by UC San Diego for the specific purpose of fog. And that's all we'll say. So you need to see more of that if you didn't. Okay, what's going on right here? Christine says explosions under us by design. Are you saying that under the area you're at right now that's happening, or are you just saying that because you are saying? All right, we're back. We had a slight disconnection there, but that, yeah, it was buffering. That happened. Somebody says trouble referring to the internet in Oklahoma, headache and irritable as well. Anybody feeling that? Is that the situation going on? Because again, like all that should be coming from the solar impacts. Now, I want to read some of what's going on with Japan, though, and how the people were affected there, because this gives us insight into situations as well. So let's read a little bit into it. In nearby Kamashi Prefecture, a 75-year-old woman preparing for a bed fled to higher ground in a car driven by her daughter and debated whether she should leave. She said, I was afraid of a bear popping up. My husband needs care, and we have a cat. So you have to think about all these situations whenever this does start to occur. Some of these vehicles, as you can see, the ground collapsed a little bit. On December 9th, this was following the 7.5 and the other ones that occurred at 5.5. They're really going through it right now. And the emergency supply situation, if it gets too strained, you will see America start to have these port announcements. You will start seeing port announcements from Japan. And then that port way, like if you're getting products or stuff like shipped from other locations coming across there, it's not going to be happening. So again, you need to prepare for all these different scenarios. People are saying they are feeling certain things like scratchy throat situations, all types of things happening. Somebody says, great work, Steve. Appreciate that, John. Katie says, is anyone feeling like they're being separated or pulling away from things around you? That's an interesting situation there. Does anybody else feel like that? And maybe that's more of an internal feeling where the world starts to shift, but you feel it too, because a lot of people said like mentally they start to see certain things that they didn't see before. They started like, it's like when the sun and all this stuff happens, it's also a triggering as well. Not just reactions around the earth, but it starts to trigger things, because a study was done about the pineal gland and how that is affected as well during the solar situation. So we're having all these reactions trigger across America as we speak. And this comes days after, let's just say, I'm not saying that it was the thing, but just in the month of November, we did have UAF research done on the atmosphere. Remember that? UAF is also connected with HAARP. And yes, they were doing this research right before all this shift start to happen. Now, this is what I would like to say. They probably saw a shift happening and they just wanted to be a part of some type of management process of it. Doesn't mean they control it. They just see what's already happening and then try to experiment to maybe change and alter the climate for certain purposes, or they may do this for another reason that we don't know anything about. However, Let's see in the chat what you think. You think these events that we're going through are just being triggered, or you think these are Earth events that's just shifting? Give me Earth or give me triggered. Because if you think it's triggered, then that means you think that they're doing it. Earth means it's just happening on its own. Some people might even put God in the chat. I'm gonna read some more of these comments though. Teaching 777, I saw two large beings inside the sun. They were connected by what looked like an arm, but was a pipe. A huge oil well pumps into the father's head and then flows to the sun. Good, nice. There's somebody saying that from their perspective here. Some people say they think both is happening. At least not here. There's channels for that, some people say. Okay, so here's the thing. Everything that I've just related to you right now, we're going to be still actively monitoring. And the thing that you need to be watching, if you're in Alaska, is the glacier stuff. We need to be watching areas close to the water. We need to look for bubbling to happen in the next few days off coastlines. You need to, if you're New Madrid Fault, you need to look for sand boils. You need to be checking the sand. Just keep an eye out, look at it, check the ground, and see if that's happening. Because when activity billows up, or we see something about the shift, that was something saw back a long time ago when New Madrid had its earthquake. So you want to check that. People on the East Coast will ask, what do they check? Well, if we see anything activity on your side, as long as we don't see anything above a 5.5 to a 6.0, everything over there should be activating as normal. So we're going to continue to monitor that. The magnetic anomalies, we're going to continue to get more updates on that. Usually today is when, when we have the geomagnetic storm, we do see the hits start to come in a little bit more. So again, if you're just tuning in, what do I mean by magnetic anomalies? So what they have is these magnetometer stations. And so we can see the incoming energy spiking and from these magnetometer stations, and we can kind of get a sense of where things will potentially hit. And that's why West Coast has been hit a little bit more often than the other places right now. So you want to subscribe, stay tuned. This also is in conjunction with the moon and the sun and the degrees of the sun and the moon at the same time. Once they conjoin, and then because the moon starts to get the tidal waves moving and the sun has its own energy impacts that hits the earth as well. And that causes the situation beneath us to start to move a little bit. So I've been really watching a lot of that, and other people saying pole shift is a concern. The professor said he didn't know whether this was a pole shift or geomagnetic excursion, because he said geomagnetic excursions, they happen very fast. Pole shifts happen a little bit slower. And he said we've gone through this quickening phase where things seem to be going faster, but he needs more data to actually prove that point. And we're going to get back with him too about everything. He's been actually messaging me every day about things he's been seeing. I've been so busy that I message him every now and then, but we'll have another video where we get him on, because do y'all want to see that? Y'all want the professor to come back on and we get more information? Give me a yes. If not, just say no. Let me know. And then I'm gonna have one more thing for everybody that's here and newly tuning in, so that when this video is over, you scroll through the chat, and I want people to get a lot of help, because this is a community full of help, full of resources, full of just people who are smart as heck. So yeah, a lot of people saying yes. Yes, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get with him today about that. And some people who are tuning in new, like, who's a professor? Well, if you go back to the videos when it says the mystery of New Madrid Fault, he actually describes all the different things that's happening and what's going to potentially uptick. He talked about how the West Coast was going to have his new situations. Okay. All right. So we're going to get him on. We're going to try to get him on either this week or next. And so other people are saying random joint and muscle pains with solar stuff, and women's cycles are off. Dapple says, Deborah says, anyone getting aching joints starting yesterday? And a lot of people are saying yes. So what I would do is, I told you 111HZ is what I listen to. It's called the divine frequency. And studies was done showing that tissue had a effect in different animals and different, like they did like mice. This was a study done at the NIH, and it showed forms that some of the tissue was reacting to this sound. And some in the temples, they call this the holy frequency. But again, I use this, and I said I use discernment. So I'll turn it on, and then if I feel it and it feels good to me, then I would use it. So again, same thing with you, use your discernment. But from what I know, people have been saying that this feels really good because everything is energy, sound. We're all everything around us. The way you speak to somebody, if you speak to them in anger, that sound transfers into their body. If you speak to them in love, you speak to them in peace, that sound transfers into their body. When you speak to your food, speak to the water, that transfers. And everything is shown that when you speak in a certain way, and this is also the power of life and death in the tongue, it has a resonating frequency. And that's why everything we do is very important. Everything we say is very important. And if we change our habits and change the way we think, we can change our life. If we stop reacting in fear and allowing the enemy to control us and make us feel a certain way, we can become much more powerful as a community. Because everything that's really happening when it comes outside the Earthship is really all us allowing that to happen. Again, we become more powerful when we come together in numbers and we see the real reality for what it is. So remember, this solar stuff, all this energy coming in is also going to impact people in ways where they're going to have these frustrations. They're going to feel all this energy and they're going to not know how to manage it. I could be a part of that. You could be a part of that. We just have to catch ourselves and be conscious of what we're doing. Because what does it matter about one little argument whenever you have a whole purpose and you have a whole situation that you could make some change happen, but instead you rather just keep arguing and bickering with somebody? I mean, that's not going to get us anywhere. And I know some people are put in situations where they don't have much of a choice, but you kind of do always have a choice. So don't be a victim of anything. Just take everything for what it is. Use your spiritual discernment. God is with you through all of it. And everybody else in this community, we're going through the same exact things. And if we can connect here, we can connect anywhere. One day when this life is all said and done, we have to look back and reflect on what we did. And we want to do everything right now. So thanks for tuning in. And I'll have the video on the left-hand side about the fog alerts. I'll be looking for your comments to see what's going on in your locations.